Most riders go after the same predictable motorcycles, the loud, flashy, overpriced status symbols. But here's the reality. Some of the finest rides you'll ever own are the ones barely anyone talks about. Imagine getting a bike that outperforms a Harley, costs half as much, and lasts longer than your first serious relationship. Stick with me, because these overlooked treasures might just change how you think about motorcycles. 12th Suzuki GS500. Need a motorcycle that simply does its job without fuss or financial pain? The Suzuki GS500 has quietly been doing exactly that since the late 1980s. It doesn't beg for attention. No flashy bodywork or modern electronics, just a straightforward 487 cubic centimeter air-cooled twin, designed to outlast bikes 3 times its price. They're cheap on the used market precisely because no one brags about owning one. And that's exactly why savvy riders snap them up. Sure, it's often labeled a beginner bike, but don't confuse that with boring. With 47 horsepower and weighing just under 400 pounds, it'll cruise comfortably at 70 miles per hour all day, while sipping fuel like a scooter. Think 50 to 70 miles per gallon. Parts are everywhere. Maintenance, grab a wrench and a beer. It's that easy. Comfort, neutral riding position, and a seat that won't destroy your back. Is it beautiful? Only if you squint. But because of that unassuming look, used prices often sit under $1,000, or usually around $1,500 to $3,500, depending on condition. While you can't buy new GS500s in the US anymore, international versions still pop up for around $7,000 to $8,000 brand new. And it's perfect for customization. Cafe racer, tracker, touring rig, you name it. This bike is a blank canvas. Bottom line, if you want a reliable workhorse that won't nickel and dime you and might actually improve your riding skills, the GS500 is waiting in the classifieds while everyone else overpays for the latest fad. No pretensions, no bragging, just ride. 11th MZ Scorpion. Ever heard of the MZ Scorpion? Probably not, and that's exactly what makes it such a hidden treasure. Built between 1994 and 2004 by East Germany's MZ, the Scorpion quietly perfected the formula while staying under the radar. It features a Yamaha engine, British design input, and Italian components, a truly international machine that got almost zero marketing. At its core is a 660 cubic centimeter liquid-cooled single, the same 5-valve thumper from Yamaha's SCR 660, producing about 48 to 58 horsepower. That won't blow your hair back, but here's the secret. It weighs only 380 pounds dry, giving it a power-to-weight ratio that lets it hit 110 miles per hour with ease. Club racers loved it for its no-nonsense simplicity, rock-solid reliability, and serious tuning potential. Some builds have pushed power to 150% of stock. It came in 3 styles: Sport, Tour, and Traveler, each punching well above its weight class. Features: stainless silencers, dual seats, factory panniers. Some models had adjustable bars and pegs. Suspension, brakes, and wheels all used premium components, making it sharp, confident, and genuinely fun to ride. So why don't you see them everywhere? No hype, no dealer push, no glossy advertising, just smart engineering from a forgotten factory. Used prices are laughably low, usually $2,000 to $3,500. Auctions show the tour models around $2,250 to $2,900. Travelers around $3,450. Clean 96 sports pop up around $2,000 to $700 to $4,000. And with that Yamaha engine, parts are easy to find, maintenance is straightforward, and reliability is excellent. This isn't some flaky Euro oddball. It's a practical sleeper with real-world ability. The MZ Scorpion is what happens when engineers focus on getting the essentials right. Light, tough, overlooked. Yamaha YZF-600R Thundercat. The Yamaha YZF-600R, better known as the Thundercat, is one of those motorcycles that gets everything right, yet somehow flies under everyone's radar. Built from 1995 to 2007, it was Yamaha's middle child sport bike. Neither a twitchy race machine like the R6, nor a soft entry-level ride. Instead, it struck a perfect balance, but got lost in the shuffle. Under the fairings sits a 599 cubic centimeter inline 4, producing around 100 horsepower. That's plenty to blast down winding roads or overtake trucks on the highway without dropping a gear. Top speed, just shy of 150 miles per hour, R6-like figures, but without the cramped, track-focused ergonomics. Weighing in at about 417 pounds dry, it lands in the sweet spot. Light enough to carve corners, stable enough for long rides. That's really where the Thundercat shines. A big, comfortable seat, relaxed handlebars, and a generous 5-gallon fuel tank let you travel farther than many sport bikes without refueling. Add in adjustable suspension, and it's just as happy handling city commutes as it is tackling twisty back roads or highway slogs. So why did it fade away? Blame the R6. As lighter, racier sport bikes grabbed all the headlines, the Thundercat quietly got pushed aside. It never built a rabid fan base, which is actually great news if you're buying used. Prices are absurdly low. Expect to see clean examples for as little as $1,100 or up to about $3,700, depending on condition and mileage. Kelly Blue book lists clean 2005 models around $3,400 with trade-in values near $2,300. Private sellers usually ask between $2,000 and $3,500. Reddit riders have scored solid runners for $1,500. If you value riding over showing off, the Thundercat is a true sleeper, reliable, comfortable, and built with Yamaha's legendary durability. Parts are easy to find. The engine is smooth as silk. It won't get you Instagram fame, but it will put a grin on your face every single ride. But while the Thundercat quietly offers comfort and speed for a bargain, our next bike doesn't care at all about comfort. It's not interested in fairings, top speed, or looking good for social media. This machine is built tough, like a cockroach that survives the apocalypse. 9 Honda XR650L. Chances are you've walked right by one without giving it a second look, and that's a shame, because the Honda XR650L is basically a tank masquerading as a dual-sport bike. The XR650L has remained virtually unchanged since 1993. Literally, same 644 cubic centimeter, air-cooled single, same rugged steel frame, same no-nonsense approach, no screens, no ride modes, no gimmicks. And that's precisely what makes it brilliant. It doesn't need fancy updates because it just works. This bike is the cockroach of motorcycles. It's been hammered through deserts, bounced off boulders, dropped in rivers, and just keeps going. Whether you're commuting, exploring trails, or blasting down remote dirt roads, the XR650L doesn't care. It shows up every single time. So why doesn't everyone want one? Simple. It's tall. The 37-inch seat height intimidates shorter riders. It's also heavy compared to modern dual sports. And it has zero flash, no edgy graphics, no aggressive plastics, just a big red fuel tank, a round headlight, and a stance that looks like it wants to suplex a mountain. It doesn't try to impress. It's here to outlast. While adventure bikes get bigger, fancier, and more expensive every year, the XR650L remains brutally simple and rock-solid reliable. Parts are everywhere. Maintenance is basic. Electronics, almost none. It's not a Swiss Army knife, it's a sledgehammer. Price? Brand new, they're around $7,600 out the door. But on the used market, clean examples usually go for $3,500 to $6,000. Dealers often list them around $5,999. Private sellers, often about $3,500. That's roughly half of MSRP for a bike that might last longer than your pickup truck. If you want a dual sport that won't coddle you, won't backstab you, and definitely won't leave you stranded, the XR650L is the answer. It's not stylish, it's not trendy, it's just damn near unkillable. Ettam Rail, Enfield, 100, 350. Ever come across a motorcycle that nails all the important things? Not with loud styling or over-the-top marketing, but by keeping it honest and straightforward? That's the Royal Enfield Hunter 350. It doesn't scream for attention, which is exactly why it works so well. No flashy promotions, no futuristic tech, just a solid, simple machine with more character than many bikes in its class. Pricing starts around $5,000, cheaper than competitors like the Yamaha MT3 or KTM Duke 390, and yet it feels completely authentic. Under the tank sits a 349 cubic centimeter air-cooled single-cylinder engine, old-school metal fenders, and Royal Enfield's signature blend of retro and modern design. 16 Honda N C750S. Sure, it only makes about 20 horsepower, but it's not meant to race. It's designed to cruise. Upright, lightweight, easy to maneuver, ideal for city traffic or weekend rides. And because it's so basic, it's incredibly easy to maintain. No complicated electronics, no finicky sensors, just a classic single-cylinder thumper that keeps things stress-free. Price-wise, brand new, you're looking at $3,999 for standard colors, $4,199 for the Rebel options. But clever buyers are finding lightly used models for $2,900 to $3,700. I've even seen 2023 examples selling for under $3,000, which is outstanding value for such a charismatic bike. Of course, it's not perfect. The clutch can be on the stiff side. The seat isn't the most luxurious. And yes, it vibrates. But that's part of its old-school charm. Royal Enfield also sells a full lineup of factory accessories, making customization easy and affordable. The Hunter 350 hits that perfect balance, cool, uncomplicated, full of soul. But maybe you want something a little bigger. Same vintage vibes, but with 4 cylinders, silky smooth power, and an exhaust note that'll make V-twin owners jealous. That's where the next bike steps in. 7th Kawasaki Zephyr 550, dreaming of a classic 4-cylinder that won't drain your wallet? Meet the Kawasaki Zephyr 550, one of the best bargains hiding in the used Japanese market. This sleeper arrived in the early 1990s, at a time when everyone was obsessed with cutting-edge sport bikes. But Kawasaki decided to go retro instead. They wanted to revive the spirit of the 1970s, so they built a modern homage to the legendary Z1. The result? Round headlight, twin shocks, teardrop tank, all the vintage styling cues, minus the headaches of an actual 70s bike. Performance? It's not a rocket, but it doesn't need to be. The air-cooled inline-4 engine puts out around 50 horsepower, topping out near 110 miles per hour. But the real magic is in the mid-range. That's where it truly shines, delivering exactly the kind of usable power you want on real roads. Maintenance is refreshingly simple. No liquid cooling to leak, no computer drama. Just a sturdy analog motor that'll run for decades if you keep the carbs clean and don't let it rust away. Comfort-wise, it's excellent. Upright riding position, wide handlebars, low seat height, friendly for beginners, great in traffic, and easy on the wallet. This bike kind of disappears beneath you until you realize you've been smiling for miles. So why doesn't it get more love? Because its bigger brothers, the Zephyr 750 and 1100, stole the spotlight. Meanwhile, bikes like the Suzuki Bandit 600 sucked up the budget-conscious crowd. The 550 simply slipped through the cracks. Good news for you. Prices remain a steal. In the US, you can find solid examples for $1,800 to $2,500. I've seen private sales in Canada around $2,000 and UK listings at $2,500 US. Even in Australia, they go for $3,000 to $3,700. It doesn't have to shout to get noticed, and that's exactly what makes it special. Classic lines, reliable engineering, and a price that feels like a mistake. But what if you want something even more raw? What if you want to ditch polish entirely and go full old-school madness? A bike that rattles, smokes, and makes 0 sense in 2025, yet somehow wins your heart. Well, buckle up. We're about to head into two-stroke territory, where legends live on in clouds of smoke and whispered garage stories. 6th Yazdi Road King. Here's a name that'll make any old-school Indian motorcycle fan smile. The Yazdi Road King. Beneath that nostalgic name lies one of the coolest two-stroke bikes you can still buy for next to nothing. Built like an armored car and louder than a fireworks finale, the Road King earned a dedicated cult following back in the day. While everyone was busy drooling over the usual suspects in the middleweight class, Suzuki quietly went back to the drawing board and created something new and surprising. The GSX-8S. It's not hard to see why a lot of people pass it by today. A smoky two-stroke that's kickstart only and has a weird shifter layout doesn't exactly scream easy daily ride. But that's precisely why prices stay low. Smart buyers see the opportunity. The Road King didn't disappear because it was a bad bike. It faded when India turned to more fuel-efficient, low-maintenance four-strokes. It's big, bold, and defiantly old-fashioned. You get a generous fuel tank, a wide, sofa-like seat, and a level of character you only get from machines built by hand, not by robots. You're not going to set any speed records, but you'll get smiles, thumbs-ups, and plenty of confused stares from younger riders trying to figure out what you're riding. Best of all, prices are absurdly low. Solid Road Kings can be had for $1,150 to $2,400 USD, depending on condition. Early 90s rider specials show up at around $1,150, while beautifully restored examples can push closer to $2,400. It's one of the rare vintage bikes where the price tag doesn't match the character. The Road King is a rolling time machine, loud, weird, and unapologetic. A reminder of when motorcycles were built with soul in every nut and bolt, and maintenance was simply part of the experience. ஐந்தாவது CF Moto 300 yes. Let's be honest about something most riders don't want to admit. If the CF Moto 300 SS had a Honda or Yamaha logo on the tank, it would be flying out of showrooms. But because it's Chinese, many folks won't even give it a second look. And that's exactly why it's such a bargain and so criminally underrated. Forget the old stereotypes. CF Moto has come a long way. The 300 SS isn't some cheap knockoff. It's impressively well built, tight, and surprisingly refined. But thanks to outdated biases and minimal marketing hype, resale values stay low, making it a golden opportunity for riders who care about substance over brand status. At just $4,599 new, the 300 SS punches well above its price point. You're getting a 292 cubic centimeter liquid-cooled single-cylinder engine, Bosch fuel injection, slipper clutch, full LED lighting, Bluetooth connectivity, and a crisp 5-inch TFT display. Tech usually reserved for bikes costing thousands more. And look at it. Race-inspired fairings, sharp angles, and a silhouette that could pass for a baby Panigale. It absolutely looks the part. The Honda CB650R is part of the iconic CB line, dating back to the legendary CB750 of 1969, the bike that effectively invented the superbike category. So why isn't it everywhere? Two main reasons: brand snobbery and limited dealer networks. Parts can be a bit trickier to source. Press coverage is almost non-existent, and it often gets slapped with the entry-level label, scaring off veteran riders who don't want to be seen as newbies. But that's why smart buyers are picking them up for peanuts. Used prices range from $2,270 to $2,990, and I've even seen one go out the door for $3,200 with barely 100 miles on the clock. The 300 SS proves you don't need a big-name badge to have a great ride. But maybe you don't care about TFT screens or fairings at all. Maybe you're looking for something tougher, something that trades fancy tech for pure, unbreakable reliability. A bike that doesn't just survive the ride, but laughs at every beating you can throw at it. And that's exactly where we're going next. Fourth BMW R1150 GS. Here's a motorcycle that could cross a battlefield, shrug off debris, and still get you home in time for dinner. Yet hardly anyone seems to want it. The BMW R1150 GS is the original adventure giant, the bike that basically invented the big ADV segment. And somehow, it's quietly waiting in the used market, offering nearly the same capability as the latest models at a fraction of the price. Second, many used examples have seen serious mileage, often 60,000 miles or more. That scares off casual buyers, but anyone familiar with BMW's air oil cooled boxer twins knows that these engines are just getting broken in at that point. The The Z900 is like a gentleman who knows how to be polite at dinner, but will absolutely win a bar fight if needed. It's not for newbies. Weighing in at around 249 kilograms, wet, with a tall seat, it's a big, serious machine. But for experienced riders who want a real-world touring workhorse that doesn't care if the road is paved or not, it's hard to beat. Pricing? You can find solid examples for $3,500 to $5,500. I even spotted a 2004 adventure model for $4,000. Sure, some dreamers list them at $13,500, but realistically, well-kept early 2000s models with 60,000 to 80,000 miles are in that $3,500 to $4,500 range. That's insane value for a machine built to cross continents without breaking a sweat. Verdict: the R1150 GS is the forgotten workhorse. A battle-scarred legend with plenty of life left, waiting to be appreciated by someone who values function over hype. Now, we're heading into truly sacred ground. The top three. These next bikes aren't just overlooked, they're criminally underrated. Starting with a Japanese inline 4 from the 1970s that might just be the best classic you can still get without selling a kidney. 3 Suzuki GS750 in the late 1970s, while everyone was busy worshipping the Honda CB750 and Kawasaki Z1, Suzuki quietly launched a motorcycle that arguably did everything better, but without any of the fanfare. That was the GS750. It didn't scream for attention, it didn't pose, it simply worked. And that's exactly why it's one of the most overlooked Japanese classics you can still afford today. Released in 1976, the GS750 entered a market dominated by icons. Instead of trying to shock the world, Suzuki focused on refinement. It featured a 748 cubic centimeter DOHC inline 4 that delivered excellent balance and legendary reliability. It perfected the formula, even if it didn't reinvent it. But it had no marketing hook. It wasn't the first like the CB750. It wasn't the fastest. It didn't win big races or star in cult movies. Even Suzuki seemed more interested in pushing the GS1000 and later, the GSX line. The result? The GS750 was the classic that history skipped over, which is nuts, because performance-wise, it punched way above its weight. Around 70 horsepower, a surprisingly stiff frame for its era, solid suspension. This was a bike built to cross countries, not sit in a garage. Styling? Understated. No wild, metal flake paint jobs. No blinding chrome. Just clean lines, that classic UJM silhouette, and a workmanlike ethic that valued riding over showing off. And in today's nostalgia-heavy market, that low-key vibe keeps prices refreshingly reasonable. It doesn't draw collectors like moths to a flame, and that's your advantage. Verdict: the GS750 is a forgotten gem. The quiet samurai of 1970s motorcycles. Not the loudest or the flashiest, but built with precision and meant to last. Right now, you can still find them in barns, sheds, and online classifieds for a fraction of what comparable CB750s or Z1s cost. If the GS750 was the quiet warrior of the 1970s, what's next? Imagine a triple-cylinder howl in a sea of inline 4s, ready to attack every curve it sees. Luckily, the aftermarket has your back. Better suspension transforms it into something that punches way above its weight. Here's a middleweight sport bike that should have owned the segment but somehow slipped under the radar. The Triumph Daytona 675. It's one of the sharpest, most rewarding rides you can buy, yet it's strangely overlooked, making it an incredible bargain for smart buyers. The Daytona 675 was Triumph's masterstroke that broke Japan's inline-4 monopoly. Instead of the typical four-cylinder layout, it used a snarling 675 cubic centimeter triple. That meant beefier torque down low, a screaming top-end rush, and an exhaust note guaranteed to raise goosebumps. Handling, absolute precision. This bike devours corners with grace and aggression, while still being forgiving enough to ride on real roads. It's buttery smooth in the turns, agile without being nervous. Just the right blend for spirited riding. So why isn't everyone buying one? The Daytona had stiff competition: Yamaha's R6, Honda's CBR 600RR, Kawasaki's ZX6R. The Japanese brands had dealer networks everywhere, big marketing budgets, and the glow of MotoGP stardom. Triumph offered a bike with incredible performance, but nowhere near the same hype. Result? The Daytona 675 was criminally underappreciated, even though it could outclass most of its rivals on a winding back road. And now, it's discontinued. No flashy promotions, no new showroom models. That's bad news for Triumph's accountants, but fantastic for used buyers. Fewer people searching keeps resale prices down, and amazing deals sitting quietly in classified ads. Sure, early models had a few quirks, like dodgy regulators and occasional electrical gremlins, but most of that was sorted out in later years. Owners rave about their Daytons for being reliable, visceral, and genuinely exciting. Verdict: the Triumph. Daytona 675 is one of the most underrated sport bikes of the 2000s. Light, fast, exotic, and shockingly underpriced. It's a snarling Brit that punches way above its weight class. The Daytona 675 is all aggression and melody. A bike that practically begs you to push harder in every corner. But not every legend needs to shout. Some bikes earn their stripes quietly, mile after mile, refusing to die even when the hype moves on. That brings us to our final machine. It's not a racer, it's a lifer. First Honda VFR 800. Because in an era obsessed with specialization, the VFR 800 is the master of doing everything well, but nothing loudly. At its heart is a glorious 781 cubic centimeter V4 engine. It purrs at idle, pulls like a freight train when you open it up, and delivers a soundtrack that sounds like a baby RC30. But because it's not an inline-4 or a twin, some riders find the layout unfamiliar and wrongly assume it's overly complicated. When it launched, it was cutting edge. Today, some call it dated, but those who know see timeless, elegant lines and a satisfying analog charm. It's heavier than a pure sport bike, but more agile than a touring barge. Once you're rolling, though, it feels beautifully balanced, stable, and surprisingly nimble for its size. Here's the kicker: it had one of the longest production runs around. That means there are loads of them on the used market at fantastic prices. High mileage examples can drop below $2,500, while really clean ones rarely crack $4,400. It's not a hype machine. You won't see it featured in bike culture movies or on Instagram flex posts. There's no cultish collector buzz pushing prices sky high. It's just a solid, bulletproof bike that can cross countries, shred twisties, or get you to work every day without drama. Sure, there are trade-offs. Valve adjustments can be pricey if you're not doing them yourself. Fuel economy averages around 38 miles per gallon, but those are small prices to pay for a bike that's this versatile and reliable. Bottom line, the Honda VFR 800 is one of motorcycling's best-kept secrets. If you want a ride that quietly over-delivers and laughs at depreciation, this is your bike. When KTM unleashed the 790 Duke, it was so rowdy that some countries literally restricted it for beginners because it had too much torque for its weight. The CB 1100EX isn't just inspired by vintage bikes. It is vintage, with modern engineering hiding underneath.